Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell along my co-host, Glenn Martin. And in this video, we're going to talk about some news. The Baltimore Ravens, of course, have a few players that we know of and love, Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum, that are up, that they're coming up on the last few years of their contract. Their fifth-year options have been, the projections for those have been made available. And, of course, the Ravens will have to make some imminent decisions. So we're excited to talk about it, what we think will happen, what we think the Ravens would do, what we think they're worth, etc. But before we do, we got to, of course, keep our lights on and keep improving our production quality and give a huge shout out to our sponsor, BetOnline, who keeps these lights on. So, Glenn, what's going on with BetOnline, man?
Well, one thing you can be sure of, Jimbo, is that BetOnline is going to continue to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. They have the largest selections of odds on everything from NBA, college basketball, to the NHL and UFC. And BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Yeah, Jimbo, the one thing that it kind of shocked me when you see these fifth-year numbers, not that, I'm necessarily that stunned because these are two really good players, and I understand that there's some accelerators that reward them for their good play. But there was some issues or some instances where I was a bit surprised at some of these totals here, Jimbo, and it's going to certainly force the Ravens to make some tough decisions. And yeah, I mean, you can't pay everyone, so you're going to have to make decisions on who gets maybe left out in the cold with these fifth-year option costs. But Jimbo, where should we start with our two guys?
Yeah, well, let me say this, Glenn. Before we talk about one or the other, I will say that I think the common consensus based on our take from the front office and then our own belief is that we got to keep these guys. These aren't guys that are on the fence. Like we've talked about other players in the past, Adafe and others, right? Even Rashad to a certain extent that people were like on the fence about, right? Kind of deciding what to do. These guys we need to lock down and keep for a long time. I think it's a matter of how we get it done, right? So I'd say we start with Kyle because honestly, I think of this situation, Kyle is really the more straightforward scenario of the two, right? So we're going to give you guys here up on the screen in a second.
Well, hang on.
Oh, okay.
I want to throw this up. This is just a little explanation first. I'm sorry. I think I may have surprised Jimmy with this one.
Yeah, that's all right. All good. I think I know what this is. These are the accelerators, right?
Yeah, I want to show you exactly why it got to the point of where it did. And this is Tom Pelissero shared this in a tweet. And so I want to break that down for you guys really quickly here. So the way the fifth-year option works, of course, if you hit certain criteria, your paycheck goes up. It increases. And, of course, what also affects your paycheck is the position in which you play. The higher the paid position, that fifth-year option is going to go up. So if a player who does not achieve any play time or any accolades, their qualifications for their fifth-year option is as you see on the screen, where obviously kicker and punters are the lowest. The highest paid is the quarterback position, and then wide receivers certainly well compensated, and offensive linemen. So pretty high numbers here, right? And then when you look up here, this is players who at least hit their playtime criteria. And you can see how those numbers change. They increase, of course, but not by a massive margin. This is just players who have achieved at least playtime stat, like numbers. They've at least been contributors on the field and not sitting on the sideline. Up here at this last paragraph, this is all the play. This is if one of those players has achieved at least one Pro Bowl nod in their first 4 seasons. Well, as you can see, another jump, especially at the quarterback position. Boom, $10 million jump at that position. But of course, we're here to talk about offensive linemen and safety. And then I don't mean to scare you guys, but this is how it changes when it goes to players who have 2 or more Pro Bowl nods. And wow, as you can see, it's a massive, massive jump in salary. Quarterbacks in this same scenario will be getting $40.2 million in that final and fifth year. I know we're talking about safeties first, right, Jimbo? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yep.
So that number, boom, right there on the screen. This is what Kyle Hamilton's expected fifth-year option will be, $18.601
Mm-hmm.
million. So because of the accomplishments that he had in his first years.
Yeah, and as a note, Glenn, I want you. I know we're talking about Kyle, but at least talk about something that's interesting about the offensive line here, because I think this is an interesting take that you brought up.
Yeah, and what benefits Tyler Linderbaum but may not benefit the Ravens is they clump the entire offensive line into one category, one group. They do not divide it amongst, interior or tackles or center, guard, and tackle. No, it's all of them. So, of course, the center position, which isn't the highest paid on the offensive line, we all know that tackles are the highest paid, particularly the blindside tackles on the left side. Their value is dragging up the value for the interior linemen and causing this number to even surpass what we see from safeties. I think if, everybody loves Tyler Linderbaum, but I think if anybody were to ask I think we all look at Kyle Hamilton as probably right up there with Lamar Jackson as far as like untouchable guys. Like I don't know if there's a single player outside of 8 that you would say is more untouchable than Kyle Hamilton. But it doesn't matter when it comes to this fifth year stuff. It matters about your peers and your, fellow position group members. Mm-hmm. The fact that they're including tackles in with centers, that's good for Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I know we're going to talk about this, but I think it makes the negotiating and the center market a little more, murkies up the water a little bit. So we'll of course put a pin in that and come back to that. But I think that's an important note there. So let's talk about Kyle, of course. A couple things. One, just like you said, Glenn, based on the market, I think you're going to pull that screen up. We can talk about the top 5, easily the top 5 or 10 or whoever the safeties that are out there. I think that Kyle's contract has to be pretty cut and dry here in that. I think Kyle Hamilton has clearly deserved to be, and Glenn, if I'm being bullish here, correct me, but I think he deserves to be the highest paid, highest guaranteed money, highest annual salary earner at his position. Do I have any opposition on that, or do you believe that as well?
Zero opposition. Yeah.
Because look at the guys on this list. I mentioned it. We were talking about it. Is Minkah Fitzpatrick really in the same conversation as Kyle Hamilton right now? I don't think so. Because Kyle, he's so versatile. Even Winfield, even Derwin James, I think simply Kyle Hamilton's better. He's more versatile and he's better at what those guys are good at for the most part, right?
Yeah, and he's also incredibly durable, where some of these guys on this list have had durability issues. So I think the thing you're pointing to that's really the part that's the most important is that he's so versatile. Like because there were question marks when his first few years when he was dominant in that close to the line of scrimmage position where he was, the Swiss Army knife, as they were putting it. There were some questions as to whether or not he could go on the back end and still be just as impactful, still be just, as good. And he showed that last year that was easily the case. He was dominant in both positions. So no matter where you put this guy, he's just spectacular. His play IQ is sensational. He's going to be, and he deserves to be, absolutely the highest paid safety in the league, no doubt.
And so I'm just going to give you, I know that people have their projections, but if you guys know anything here on the show, I'm pretty good at this prediction thing. At least about some things, not all things. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm some sort of crystal ball. However, I'm just going to tell you what the contract details are going to need to be for Kyle Hamilton. Okay. So, Winfield's contract was 4 years, $84 million, 45 guaranteed, 21 per year in average salary. Kyle's is going to be 22 and change. That's going to be like 22 and a half, 90 million, 50 over 4 years and 50 million guaranteed.
I think that's perfectly fair, right? He'll be happy. He gets a pretty decent jump above the current leader in that group, which is Winfield. And let's remember, Antoine Winfield is 27 years old, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about a 24-year-old Kyle Hamilton. So,
and that's why I think he would take that 4 year, because then he can re-up again.
Right. And a 28-year-old safety hitting the market is certainly not past or beyond any prime. Can very much so double dip, get another monster deal. I think that's an excellent prediction, Jimbo. I think that's any dollar. And look, what we know for sure is that all these numbers you see for Winfield, it's going to be at least $1 higher in every category.
100%.
Like that we know, and I think it's going to need to be more than just a small increase. We've seen it in past where players will literally take 1,000 more than the next guy just to say I'm that guy. Well, if we're just giving people what they're due and what they've earned, then he should probably get even more than that over Winfield. Not to say these guys are, I mean, obviously these are very good players, the best of the best of the position, but I think Kyle Hamilton's just that special.
Yeah, two other notes on Kyle. One, I think that the largest delta you'll see in the Winfield deal and Kyle's new deal will be in the guaranteed money. I think that the per annum amount and maybe even the total value, of course, there'll still be a delta, but it might not be as high. Where I think percentage-wise, the guaranteed money is, I think, where the Ravens really, sell their guys on a potential contract that may be lower in total money, but higher in guarantees. I think that there'll be a big jump there. And then the other piece, Glenn, do you think that from an ordinal perspective, I think that they're okay waiting to get Kyle's deal done because they already know he's going to be the highest paid guy, and so it makes it less murky in my opinion. And 18 million, if it came down to it, like if Kyle was trying to strong arm him in that last deal, I don't see that happening. It's also still not even the highest paid guy at his position where, as we kind of move over to Linderbaum, I think Linderbaum's deal gets done first because it's much more it's much murkier there. What do you think? I think that's something that we should look out for as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. They would be getting they would be in the advantage if they allow Kyle Hamilton to play on that $18 million fifth-year option because, as you can see here, he's definitely going to make more than that annually once he signs his deal. And They could be, of course, creative with cap numbers and make his fifth year maybe the cap number lower, but eventually you're going to have to pay the piper and pay up. So, yeah, I think no rush on Kyle Hamilton as long as you don't piss the guy off. But I don't think that's the case. Seems like he's pretty happy here in Baltimore, and I know the Ravens are happy to have him. But yeah, let's turn the page a little bit here, Jimbo, because you were right. It's definitely a little bit. It's a more complicated issue when it comes to the center position because that damn tackle. I mean, and shout out to Tyler. I mean, this is great for any of the interior offensive linemen who are talented around the league. It's going to help them out a lot, but it's not really doing many favors for the Ravens. And I think it's why they need to get it done quicker.
Yeah, and I think there's two factors to that, Glenn. I agree with you. It's that lumping of them together, but it's also, if you look at the top five paid, it's that big jump between Creed Humphrey at 18 per a year. And I mean, if you look at his guaranteed money, that's whatever the math is there, a shy under.
It's $8 million more.
Yeah, right. So $8 million more. And then I look at the total value, right? That's 18 million more. Mm-hmm. So that contract is so far out ahead of Ragnall's contract that where does Kyle fall, right? It makes it a little more complicated for the Baltimore Ravens because they don't want to slight Tyler. I think Tyler's better than Creed Humphrey. You know what? I loved watching Creed Humphrey get dominated in the Super Bowl, and then I'm have to pay him all that money. I mean, that was certainly enjoyable, but I think that the Ravens also have to be responsible here, right? So Talk to me, like, what do you see happening in this engagement? And let me also say this. There's also a possibility that as an Iowan, you have to consider he's a meat and potatoes guy. He doesn't want to get in the weeds. Like, just wants his money, just wants to buy his farm. Like, leave him alone. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I don't know how much that player has to, right? It's about them. How much their persona bleeds into contract negotiations. But I feel like with a guy like him, I don't see him as one, the diva, two, the guy that's like, I need to make a statement. Or like, I just don't see that out of Tyler. I think he just wants to play football and be well paid.
Yeah, and that could be very well be the case. I certainly hope he's not.
Maybe I'm just being optimistic.
Well, that could be it too, Jimbo. You could be hopeful because whoever, I tell you this thing, I hope that whoever Tyler Linderbaum's agent is, I don't have it in front of me, but I hope it's not the same agent as Creed Humphrey because, man, that guy or gal did a heck of a job because, you pointed it out. Frank Ragnow, while a little older, is a multiple-time Pro Bowler and respected as one of the very best, and he absolutely destroyed his contract when it came up. Now, we do see some other total values down a little bit lower, like Eric McCoy, but we all know what it is about. It's about the guarantees, and he had a pretty good jump from where Frank was at. So my hope is that I know you say, Tyler's better than Creed Humphrey. I just hope maybe the Ravens and his agent don't agree. I'm hoping that he doesn't quite get what Creed got. I'm hoping he gets maybe slightly under. And when you consider the fact that Creed has been the all-pro, it's going to be hard for the agent to go in there and argue that Tyler Linderbaum's better, or, it's like, you'd like him more, but I don't know if he's better when you look at what Creed's been able to accomplish. Now, you could say there's some sort of Chiefs bias. Okay. But Creed's got the accomplishments, and at least that's what I'm banking on, because what I don't want to see is Tyler Linderbaum surpass Creed Humphrey. Because if he's out there putting together a deal for, say, $20 million annually, I don't know, man. Like, do you think that there's any, let's say hypothetically, Jimbo, Tyler is that guy, or at least he's convinced by his agent to be the market setter, to be the guy, they say, look, it's your responsibility to continue to move that market up for players behind you and players after you. Is there a chance that if he says, I'm not playing for less than 20 mil a year, that Tyler Linderbaum isn't a Raven in a couple of seasons?
No. Well, there will be, I think there's a better chance that we get snow in April. Like, than that he will go to another team. Eric talked about being strong up the middle of this team offensively and defensively. Tyler is a linchpin in that.
Yeah.
So I I think there's extremely small chance that he goes to another team, at least coming off of his rookie contract, getting this next contract. I think you bring up some good points. The last thing I want to happen is him to be offended or feel some type of way, right? Like, I tell you what, I'm obviously going to never be in the situation as far as sports go. I could be in the situation, who knows, in other aspects of my life of employment, but telling me that I have responsibility to my peers.
I know, right?
Sorry, dude. Like,
yeah,
I'm a loaded gun. I'm going to do what's best for me and my family, bro. Like, you think they care about me at the end of the day?
Right.
That's just wild to me. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I know there's guys that feel an obligation toward that. And it's certainly like the running back position, because they've been going through this whole thing. But the centers
are agent driven, right?
Yeah. Well, and the running backs have been pushing against the fact that they've been devalued. So I get the like unification of that position and wanting to like push that forward. But the like you said, this ain't happening to the centers.
No,
they're getting paid more and more every year. And so I don't see that. I can see where you're saying. So I mentioned it before. I think when Ronnie signed his extension with the Ravens back in the day, I don't think he became quote unquote the highest paid center, but he did get the most guaranteed money. Or sorry, tackle, my bad. He did get the most guaranteed money. And I think we'll see that from this deal. I think he may not be the highest per annum, like however they work that out. Right. But I think he'll get the most guaranteed money.
And with being as young as he is, he could choose to sign like a 4-year deal and then re-hit it again at a age of 29, where a center is still very much so, has a pretty decent amount of career left. But did want to pull this up because it's hopefully it goes like this, because right now the number one paid center in the league is Creed Humphrey. He's also the highest graded center last year. Number 2 in the league paid wise, Frank Ragnow, who was also the number 2 rated center in the league. My hope is that first and foremost, they got to get the deal done before he actually hits that 5th year. I don't want to see any scenario where we're paying, as good as he is. I don't want Tyler Linderbaum $23.5 million to play center. No. Hell no, that can't happen. So the urgency is far greater to get Tyler Linderbaum inked long term. If you guys can, if the two sides can negotiate. But my hope is that it comes, behind the deal of Frank Ragnow, or at the very least under the deal that Creed Humphrey gets, because I want the Ravens to have as much money to give to other people, to make this team stronger and not, have it, all to one or a handful of really good players. Sure. So, man, I hope that look, we got good negotiators here in Baltimore, but I just hope that they point to these things like, look, we love this guy, but we can't just make him higher paid than damn Creed Humphrey, because he's being paid like a freaking tackle, unless he actually performed better than Creed Humphrey and has some sort of data to prove that. And to this point, I don't think they're going to find it. So my hope, Jimbo, is that they settle for total guarantees. I mean, look, the total guarantees are probably going to be close to Creed Humphrey, close to that 50 million. But man, I don't want the annual salary to go up to 20.
Yeah, no. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes, Glenn, certainly, because all the 4 of the top 5 have 4-year deals. So if you're talking about plus 50 million in guaranteed dollars, you know, it's just very difficult to get to that number, like to make the math.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be tricky, but I think that both deals will get done. I think that Tyler Linderbaum's deal will get done first. And let me throw something at you, Glenn. I believe that the best duo of draft picks, first-round draft picks in Ravens history, and I don't think this will ever be different. J.O. Ray Lewis. You just can't. You can't beat. They're the 2 best at their position of all time. Like, you can't beat it. This pair might go down. I mean, I can't think of a better pair right now off the top of my head of first-round picks.
Yeah, I mean, how often do we have 2? I mean, I know we had Lamar and Hayden Hurst, but Hayden Hurst is dragging that list down.
Right, Adafe and Bateman, but certainly, I mean, credit to them, they're solid players, but they're not Kyle and Tyler.
That's a good point. This could be. I mean, how often have we had multiple picks in the first round in this franchise? It's probably not a ton.
Right.
But damn it, when we do, we freaking nail it.
Yeah, this has to be number 2. I mean, and they would be number 1 on basically any other team.
Yeah, certainly by the end of their career, if it continues to go how it's currently going, yeah, they would. But look, Jimbo, the bottom line is, I mean, look, they got to pay them, because if your motto is you keep in homegrown talent, you keep them at home, then you can't do much better than what these guys have done. They earned it, and so you pay both these guys. You don't let them leave, no matter what. But Jimbo, at $12.5 million at projected cap space as it stands right now, in 2 years, you're still paying Lamar. You're now paying both Linderbaum. You're paying Hamilton. Who knows what's going on with Roquan at that point?
And Ronnie's deal is going to be. It looks imminent,
which we'll talk about here in a second. It just seems like, man, it's going to get real tight around here in the cap when you start to look at all these good players that got to get paid.
Zay's going to be coming up before you know it. I mean, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, but I think I see no world in which they're not Ravens.
Yeah. They're the definition of a Raven. They're the most success. They're the definition of a draft success story. Like, best player available. Everything that they want to motto, they should just hang their pictures. Best player available. They told us we shouldn't take a center. Boom, multi-time Pro Bowler. They said why do you need a safety? You already got 2 good safeties. What the hell are you doing taking a safety? Generational talent. Like, they should be hanging these guys' pictures in the walls of the castle as a show of why we have the mottos here in Baltimore of BPA and play like a Raven and all this stuff. These are living and breathing examples of it. So yeah, here's to hoping that they get it done and get it done sooner than later. But Jimbo, I did want to quickly touch on before we head out, since we're talking contracts, the expectation now that the Saquon deal is done and over, and he got absolutely paid, which he certainly deserves. Shout out to him and kind of him raising him along with Derrick Henry, bringing that value of running back, and Josh Jacobs, I should say. I don't want to leave him out because he changed teams and was certainly impactful. But he got paid. Saquon got absolutely paid, set the new market, new highest paid running back in guarantees. The rumor is that because his agent is the same agent of Ronnie Stanley, the expectation is Ronnie Stanley's deal is now going to be put on the front burner before back burner, since Saquon was Saquon. But now that his or her attention, I can't remember who the agent is, can now be turned towards Ronnie. Do you expect a deal to be made sometime this week?
Yeah, it's imminent. I mean, it's just, it's absolutely going to happen. I expect it to. So yeah, I think the deal is all but in the final stages. I think we'll expect something soon.
Now, with that being said, Jimbo, we just talked about the contract values of some of these positions. Well, tackle's pretty damn high, Jimbo. What type of pound discount should the Ravens be expecting from Ronnie Stanley?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I think some, but I think he'll want the guarantees. Maybe per annum's not high, maybe years aren't high, but I think 80+% of his contract will be guaranteed.
Man, 80+%. Okay, well that's a lot because look at these guarantees, Jimbo. I mean, what are we? Whew! Like, these are some numbers on this screen. I mean, Darisaw. I mean, look, he's a 26-year-old, a little bit different than what Ronnie's, going to be dealing with at his age. But I don't know, man. Look at Jermaine Illuminor. I mean, you want to talk about a success story? Let me point no further than Jermaine Illuminor still getting absolutely paid in this league after being what was that, international player from England?
Yep.
And look at him now, many, many years later. But yeah, my only concern is that, well, here's the thing. Doesn't it have to be like a really short deal? Would you expect from Ronnie? Like, what's the maximum length of this contract?
3.
3. Okay. And then do you see that third year as a year they could get out of?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's what I have. I see like 2 years of guarantees and then a third year and maybe even some void years to help limit the cap, because what they can't do is have a massive cap number 3 years from now for Ronnie Stanley. Just can't do it with all these guys getting paid. So I think I expect a 3-year deal with really only 2 years of which to be actually guaranteed, and that third year they can get out of. But make sure you guys keep your head out. Make sure you keep your eyes open for the expected news to drop this week. But let us know what you guys think on the 5th-year options on both both Tyler and Kyle. Let me know on both of those. Who do you value more? Who do you think they need to sign first? And ultimately, do you think they should bring them both back? Or do you think there's a possibility one of these guys could be leaving and not being here long term? Let us know in the comments section below, and we'll talk soon.
See you.
You got to trust me. Pull up in a big truck, big trust. Yeah, that's power. Never let it try me. I power out with the shootout and ride for a hobby and rock.